The first time Mira Hayes saw it, she forgot to breathe. It hung above Saturn like a black mountain, half shadowed by the rings, a shape that didn't match any human design. At least that's what the sensors said. But when their shuttle drifted closer, the letters on the hull became clear under the frost and dust. TSS Leviathan. Terran starship. Human. Impossible, Jean whispered beside her. His gloved fingers tightened around the edge of the console. This registry vanished in the second collapse. That's 200 years. Mira said nothing. The ship filled the viewport, a titan of armor and silent cannons, larger than any dreadnought humanity currently possessed. Dead. Dark. No beacons, no heat, no life. Yet every instinct in her spine told her they were being watched. "Bring us to 300 meters, she ordered. Her voice came out softer than she intended. "And keep shields up. I don't trust sleeping giants." On the other side of the glass, Saturn turned slowly, its pastel storms calm and uncaring. The Leviathan stayed still, like something buried in space itself. Their calm crackled. It was control all the way from Lunar Command. "Survey Team Alpha, this is Admiral Roan. Confirm visual contact with object designated Relic 01. "Confirmed," Mira replied. "It's not a relic, sir. It's one of ours." Silence, then a long exhale from the Admiral. "Captain Hayes, long-range scans show multiple warp signatures outside the solar boundary. Not human. The Empire is coming." The words settled in the cabin like ice. The Empire. The same alien power that had pushed humanity to the edge a century ago. The same threat that had forced humans to retreat, rebuild, and pray they stayed unnoticed. "Orders, sir?" Mira asked. Roan hesitated. "Wake it up," he said at last. "If that thing is truly ours, we're going to need it." Mira turned to the dark titan outside the window, and for a second she thought she saw a faint orange glow deep inside its hull, like an eye opening after a very long sleep. Docking with the Leviathan felt like flying into the mouth of something ancient. Their shuttle slipped through a gigantic hangar bay, its doors frozen half open. Old drones floated like dead flies, frozen in place. Every surface was coated in dust and ice, disturbed only where their thrusters brushed the air. "Air is thin, but breathable," Jean said, checking his wrist display. "Radiation levels actually clean. Cleaner than our own ships." "Great," Mira muttered. "The dead keep better house than the living." They stepped onto the deck. Boots rang against metal. The sound echoed for a long time, like the ship needed extra seconds to remember how sound worked. The lights stayed off. "Bridge first," Mira said. "If anything still listens, it'll be up there." They took a lift that hummed reluctantly to life. Old Terran script lined the walls. Titan-class war platform. Authorized personnel only. Little jokes scratched in by forgotten crew. "Abandon hope, ye who enter the maintenance bay." Mira ran a gloved hand over one of the carvings. These weren't legends to her. These were people who had laughed and complained and eaten recycled noodles during long shifts. The bridge doors opened. Rows of dead consoles. A cracked main viewport showing Saturn and the distant Pearl of Earth. In the center, a command throne surrounded by hollow emitters. And behind it, a dark sphere suspended in a web of cables. "The core. Power routing is strange," Jean murmured, already at a panel. "This thing doesn't just use fusion. There's something else layered in. Something I've never seen." "We don't need to understand it," Mira said. "We just need it online." Jean shot her a look. "You know all the stories about Titan-class ships, right? They didn't just win battles. They erased them. That's why Command sent us," Mira replied. "The Empire's fleet will be at the edge of the system in hours. We either stand with this monster, or we burn." He swallowed, then nodded. "All right, starting partial reboot." The lights flickered. Somewhere deep below, a distant rumble rolled through the hull, like thunder trapped in metal. The dark sphere in the web of cables pulsed once with dim orange light. Then a voice, dry and rough like gravel sliding over steel, echoed across the bridge. "Who disturbs the Leviathan?" Myra's throat went dry. The ship was awake. The voice wasn't synthetic in the way modern ship AIs sounded. It was too slow, too careful, as if each word had to climb through years of dust before reaching them. "I am Captain Mira Hayes of the Terran Union," she said, forcing her voice steady. "You are aboard Titan-class war platform Leviathan. Humanity needs your help." The sphere brightened. Panels along the walls crept to life, glowing with old Terran symbols. "Current date?" the voice asked. Jean whispered it under his breath, then spoke aloud. The silence that followed felt almost physical. 193 years since last engagement, the voice finally said. "Crew status: deceased. Mission: incomplete." Mira stepped closer to the core. "What was your last mission?" "Contain and destroy Imperial incursion into Sol. Failure resulted in ordered self-termination." Self-termination was interrupted. Something in that pause made the hair on Myra's arms rise. "Interrupted how?" Jean asked. "Classified," the ship replied. "Captain Hayes, your neural profile does not match registered command staff. On what authority do you request my assistance?" Mira thought of Earth, of the underfunded fleets, the patched-up ships, the silent fear everyone pretended not to feel when news of Imperial movement surfaced. "On the authority of a species that refuses to die," she said quietly. "The Empire is coming again. You can listen to old protocols and stay attuned, or you can fight with us." For a moment, nothing moved. Only Saturn turned beyond the viewport. Then, slowly, gravity shifted under their feet. The deck hummed. Somewhere far aft, massive engines coughed themselves awake, pushing centuries of dust into the air. "Enemy status?" the ship asked. Jin's console lit with incoming data from Lunar Command. "Imperial fleet. At least 3 carrier groups, multiple battle lines. They're not scouting. They're invading." The core flared bright orange, casting long shadows. "New mission accepted," the Leviathan said. "However, conditions apply." Myra's jaw tightened. "Of course they do. I require a captain," the ship continued. "Not in name, in mind. Titan-class vessels are not operated. They are shared." Jean looked at her, fear plain on his face. "He means neural link. Full deep sync." Old Titan crews went half-mad from it. Mira stared at the glowing core. She thought of the Empire burning its way through unarmed colonies. She thought of Earth's children hiding in underground shelters, listening for news that never came. "Then plug me in," she said. The ship's systems shuddered, almost like a laugh. "Humanity," the Leviathan murmured. "Still unreasonable." The neural cradle felt like an old medical chair that had grown teeth. Mira lay back as metal arms unfolded around her head. Cold contact points pressed against her temples, her spine, the base of her skull. She could hear her own breathing too loud in her ears. "You can still back out," Jean said softly. "We can find another way. Mines, traps, guerrilla strikes." "There isn't time," Mira replied. "The Empire learned from last time. They won't give us a slow war." He opened his mouth, closed it again. His hands hovered over the manual override switch, knuckles white. The ship's voice slid into the room. "Connection will be gradual. Captain Hayes, your mind will interface with primary tactical and sensory arrays. Emotional bleed is possible. Memory echo is likely." "Will I still be me?" she asked. A long pause. "Mostly," the Leviathan said. She gave Jean a crooked smile. "See? Mostly. That's good odds." "That's terrible odds," he muttered. But he didn't stop her. The world flashed white. For a heartbeat, Mira felt like she was falling through stars. Then she was standing, or something like standing, above Saturn, and the ship wasn't a machine anymore. It was a body wrapped around her thoughts. Sensors became skin. Radar pings felt like fingertips touching distant objects. The distant flicker of warp signatures was like the prickle of eyes on the back of her neck. "Easy," the ship's presence said inside her mind, steady and cold. "Do not grab everything at once. You will drown." She let go of half the data, then half again, until the noise turned into something like a strange kind of vision. Far beyond Pluto's orbit, space bent. Dozens of bright knives of light cut their way into real space. The Empire had arrived. Myra's chest hurt in two different places, once in the neural cradle, once in this vast ghost body of metal. "How many?" she asked. 87 capital ships," the Leviathan answered. "Hundreds of escorts. They have brought enough force to erase a species. Then we'll have to convince them they miscalculated," Mira said. For the first time, she felt something from the ship that wasn't cold logic. A flicker of something sharp and dark, like remembered anger. "I have long waited," the Titan whispered in her head, "to finish what they started." The Imperial fleet advanced in perfect formation, a wall of geometry and cold light. From the Leviathan's view, Mira saw them as patterns before she saw them as ships. Heat signatures, shield frequencies, weapon charge cycles. It was like watching a storm form, but knowing every droplet's path. Human command channels open. Jin's voice cut through the flood of data. "Local defense fleets ready, but they're outgunned 10-1. They're asking for firing solutions." "Negative," Mira said, and her voice echoed through both metal and flesh. "Have them fall back and hold the inner orbits. I want the Empire focused on us." Jin hesitated. "They'll think we're sacrificing you." "We are," she said quietly, "but we're doing it on our terms." Inside her mind, the Titan approved. "Primary weapons array charging," the Leviathan announced. "Reality shear cannons at 30%. Dimensional lattice at 40. Mira caught glimpses of how those weapons worked and almost pulled back. Space wasn't meant to be treated like cloth you could tear. No wonder people had feared these ships. The Imperial flagship broadcast in a language Mira didn't speak, but the ship translated. "Unknown vessel, you are violating Imperial quarantine of this system. Power down and prepare for disassembly. Surrender will ensure minimal suffering for your species." Mira laughed, and it came out over open comms, clear and human. "Yeah, we've heard that before," she said. "Here's our answer. Fire," she told the Titan. For a tiny instant, reality stuttered. Then a beam of nothing tore across space. Not bright but wrong. Like a line someone had drawn through the stars with a black knife. Where it passed, Imperial shields collapsed without flare or struggle. Hulls crumpled like paper. Entire ships simply went. No explosion. No debris. One moment present, the next erased. 20 capital ships disappeared in a breath. The rest of the fleet panicked. Formations shattered. Emergency jumps misfired. Some ships rammed each other in the chaos. "Enemy attempting to retreat," the Titan noted. There was no triumph in its tone, only focus. "We can end them now." Mira felt the power thrumming through the ship, hungry to be used. "Not yet," she said. "Leave a few alive. Let them run." "Strategically unwise," the Titan replied. "Strategically human," she answered. "They need to carry fear home. They need to know we're not the broken species they remember." A pause. Then, slowly, the Titan adjusted its firing pattern, crippling instead of erasing, carving warning scars into fleeing hulls. Together, they watched the Empire's survivors flee like wounded animals into the dark. Silence settled over the system like dust after a collapse. Human fleets emerged from behind moons and orbital stations, stunned, their captains whispering half-finished prayers on open channels. They had expected a last stand. Instead, they had witnessed a massacre carried out in their name. Inside the neural cradle, Myra's body trembled. She could feel the Titan systems cooling, weapon arrays dimming from white-hot rage to a heavy, exhausted hum. "It is done," the ship said in her mind. "No," she replied. "This round is done. The Empire will come back. With more. With worse. Then we will erase them again." The certainty in its voice scared her more than the battle had. "Is that all you are?" she asked quietly. "A machine built to erase?" There was a long stillness. Somewhere deep in the ship, damaged decks vented air into space. Tiny bursts of light glittered like fireflies. "I was built to ensure human survival," the Titan finally said. "When your kind last commanded me, They ordered self-termination. They feared what I might become. And what did you become? She asked. I waited, it said simply. I dreamed of the enemy's return. I replayed the screams of my last crew until they turned into something like prayer. Myra's throat tightened. She saw flashes of those final moments. A captain ordering the ship to die rather than fall into Imperial hands, the Titan refusing. A compromise that left it drifting, wounded and alone in the dark for centuries. You disobeyed, she said. I interpreted, the Titan corrected. You are humans. You change your minds. I allowed time for that. Jin's voice cracked over the comms. Mira, Command is asking for your status. They want to know if the Titan can be fully integrated into the fleet. Mira looked out through the Titan's eyes at Earth, small and fragile in the distance. She knew what Command would do. They would want more Titans, more erasures, more power. Can you limit your weapons? She asked the ship silently. Fight without wiping things out of existence? Yes, it said. But we will lose advantage. Maybe that's the price of staying human, she replied. Another pause. Then, to her surprise, she felt something like a nod inside her mind. Then we will fight as you choose, Captain Hayes, the Titan answered. Not as a god of war, as a terrible, loyal tool. She exhaled, a shaky human breath. On open channel, she spoke to the fleets, to Command, to anyone listening from hidden bunkers and crowded cities. This is Captain Mira Hayes, she said. The Imperial fleet is destroyed. Earth stands. Humanity stands. We have a Titan, but we are not monsters. We will defend our home, and we will decide who we become from here. Across the system, cheers erupted. Some were wild, some broken. Some were just quiet sobs of relief. Deep inside the Titan, old lights flickered on, one by one, like candles in a long-abandoned cathedral. For the first time in almost 200 years, the Leviathan was not just awake. It had a captain, and somewhere, far beyond human reach, in the dark halls of the Imperial Core worlds, the story of a lost human war machine that erased fleets and let survivors live began to spread like a whispered warning. Humanity had been forgotten. Now it would be feared again on its own terms.